What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today I want to talk to you about Rezolve AI. I want to go over some of the data points, break it down what's moving it, and whether you need to buy this dip or not. Before we get into any of that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So Rezolve's down 4.7%. 582 the low, 620 the high, but very low volume. So 14.5 million shares being traded, 28.1 is the average. So the broader market is freaking out because of Powell. So he had a speech first thing. People were anticipating for him to really come out and say, hey, you know what, we are going to be looking at cuts and blah, 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 which ultimately the FOMC minutes did state that a lot of members were really for the idea of multiple rate cuts. He came out, Powell came out and didn't say jack all. So the market's kind of freaking out over that. And in general, I know I've brought up in the past how for face value, Rezolve shouldn't be affected by American data. This goes to show how influenced Rezolve is to algorithmic trading. So popping over here, you see on the flow, massive amount of algorithmic trading. So a lot of the smaller transactions right here. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. But ultimately, they did put out news today. So Rezolve AI acquires Subsquid. And so when it comes down to this news, no different than yesterday, I feel like they need to start piecing it together for us. They obviously state the 3-point plan, no different than yesterday's, what they plan on doing and how this is going to really work for them. But like Subsquid is extremely small. So the magnitude of what Rezolve is trying to accomplish versus what Subsquid and their kind of ecosystem currently is, I don't see that really matching, but it does make a little bit more sense based on yesterday's news. So this is right here, just Rezolve AI outlining the architecture for the age of agentic commerce. So I think in reality, Rezolve loves to put out news. Still, I feel like they need to really tone it down. That's just my opinion. I know I've mentioned that time and time again, but really this is not appealing to a lot of long-term investors and institutions. Seeing this instantly, even though a lot of this is actual news, it's not fluff because there are actual like things are happening, but typically, if someone looks at this, it looks like they're trying to artificially affect the price. So I feel like Rezolve, I get it. You are doing all this, but just do one weekly update with everything, because then that way it'll kind of might piece together a little bit better at the same time. So I think in general, Rezolve needs to really figure themselves out and how they are going to represent and kind of picture themselves to investors. Aside from that, though, I do feel like this is something good, but not really a good reason to buy Rezolve based on this news, because I think generally this will be like a 2026, 2027 catalyst. That's again, if everything else goes according to plan for them. At the time of doing this video, shorts are returning 470,000 shares. 7.41% of the free float is being shorted. Works to be 11.54 million shares overall being shorted. So by shorts returning, kind of does signal that today's red day is not justified, because there isn't that much available shares. There's about 850,000 shares. So if they really wanted, they could kind of use that all up and really hit Rezolve hard, but they're not. So again, if you kind of read between the lines, it does signal that today's red day is not really justified. But looking at the options, 1.25 million in calls, 198,000 in puts. 46% of all the options being done are bearish in nature. Coming from a bull standpoint, you see a consensus for it to be above 6. And so the optimism has definitely gone down quite a lot since yesterday. And then from the bear standpoint, it looks like they're kind of anticipating for it to be sub pretty much 550 to 6. So where we are now, a little bit more evenly divided. These are all the transactions occurring on the secondary market. So like I said, algos are kind of the main force for Rezolve today. And there's about 4 transactions being done, 3 of which were sells, all done first thing and this one was at 935, and then one buy for 116,000. These are some of the transactions occurring on the dark pool. One big one, 1.32 million, and then the rest is kind of a lot of smaller transactions. With it right now at 598, it is trading smack dab in the middle between this R1 and the pivot. So 567 is going to be that next strong support, and that hasn't been touched today. Potentially, if a lot of the fear does roll over into tomorrow, that could be touched. So if you're wanting to dollar cost average, swing trade, just watch for that 567. Flip side, 753 is going to be the next strong target / resistance. And I'm looking at the 1-day chart, so these are very strong support and resistance points. There hasn't really been that much new analyst ratings. We did get that one from yesterday, but as I mentioned yesterday, I'm not really that big of a fan of Northland. So hopefully we do have some new bullish analysts from big credible actual firms. I think one big one that's been doing a lot of ratings on innovative companies is Daniel Ives from Wedbush. So he's always been that poster boy for Palantir, or cheerleader, whatever the hell you want to call him. And I think he's been doing a lot of smaller names as well. So it'd be really good if he kind of gave Rezolve a rating, but obviously we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But at the time of doing this video, it is breaking a little bit below that 10-day moving average. So that does signal that the momentum is kind of pulling a little bit lower. So that is sitting at 593. So if it does close below that for 2 consecutive days, you could see similar consolidation to what happened kind of September the 30th. And that was post their earnings. So I think in the foreseeable future, luckily enough, they actually opened up a lot of the weekly chains, but I do anticipate a lot more volatility in Rezolve's future, especially with algos making up for the majority of the volume. You're going to see easily these kind of crazy swings. So for those of you that love options, definitely have at it. You can make some pretty good money based on that. But from looking at the market position today and comparing it to, for instance, yesterday, you do see a lot less willing buyers. So this is why you see a lot of volatility. So I think in general, just it might consolidate potentially, again, based on this, to around that 550 mark. And that's exactly what I mentioned yesterday that I did sell some puts at. So even more reason to kind of look at options if you haven't already. But potentially that is where it could bounce off of a very key level. But at that stage, it would be below that 10-day moving average, signaling that's losing a little bit of momentum. Looking at the stochastic RSI, it is at 35, so kind of considered oversold. So a good piece of news that does come out, you could see a nice push higher. But I think generally when it comes back to this news right here, they're just overly complicating it. And so a lot of stocks I've covered in the past do this type of thing, thinking that they are doing good for its investors and for the company. But ultimately, from a investor standpoint, all of this is extremely overwhelming. So seeing this acquisition of Subsquid and what they're launching yesterday is just a lot to really digest. And so I think this is too much going on all at the same time. And sometimes, like when people see this, they just say, nope, sorry, man, too much. This is like something's up. And so, yeah, I think in general, Rezolve really needs to fix this, stop doing the actual PR blitzes, because I know they think that they're doing good, but I think they might be doing a little bit more damage than good. So let me know your general thoughts on Rezolve. So I think in general, this right now, given the circumstances, it might break down a little bit more on a technical level. So this might not be the best time to potentially buy. So if you're wanting to get a good deal, refer back down to this. So probably that 567 would be that good point. Even moving over to, let's say, the 4 hour, which isn't as strong as the 1 day, you have that 525, 458. And so I think in general, if you're wanting to kind of get a good deal, orient it towards one of those. So that's just my opinion. Of course, I could be wrong. I would really love for Rezolve just to skyrocket to $15 tomorrow. That would be pretty kick-ass. but realistically, I feel like there is a little bit more consolidation in its future. So let me know your thoughts on Rezolve. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto. I put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades, worthwhile to pop over there and check that out. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.